All right, Class 10 students, let's dive into Julius Caesar. If you're getting ready for your 2026 board exams, you know this play is a big deal. Today, we're zeroing in on the absolute heart of the story, Act 3. Seriously, this is where everything flips upside down, and we're going to break down exactly what you need to know. So here's our game plan. First, we'll establish why Act 3 is the ultimate turning point of the play. Then, we'll get right into the assassination itself. After that, we'll dissect those two legendary speeches from Brutus and Antony, see how they unleash total chaos, and then wrap it all up with the key takeaways you'll want for your exam. You know, Act 3 isn't just an action-packed scene. It's the structural pivot of the entire play. Think of it like the very peak of a mountain. Everything before this moment has been the long climb up to Caesar's assassination. And everything that comes after, the Civil War, the downfall of the conspirators, well, that's the inevitable avalanche that results from this one single event. Okay, so let's zoom right in on that pivotal moment, the assassination. We're going to look at how Shakespeare, like the master he is, builds the tension, second by second, leading right up to Caesar's final moments on the Senate floor. So right before the attack, and I mean seconds before, Caesar's arrogance is just off the charts. You've got the conspirators kneeling, pleading with him, and he just dismisses them, boasting that his decisions are completely unchangeable. And this declaration of his own invincibility, it's a perfect textbook example of dramatic irony. Caesar compares himself to the Northern Star, this constant, godlike figure. But we, the audience, know what's coming. We know his fate is sealed, which makes these proud words sound incredibly tragic and pretty hollow. The attack itself is just so sudden and brutal. Casca strikes first from behind, which is the signal for all the others to just swarm him. But the final blow, the one that truly breaks Caesar, comes from the one man he trusted completely, his friend, Brutus. These famous last words, wow, they reveal Caesar's complete and utter heartbreak. Et tu, Brute? It shows that it wasn't the physical wounds that defeated him, but the absolute shock and pain of this betrayal. In that single moment, his spirit just breaks. So with Caesar dead, the battle for Rome moves from the Senate to the streets. The daggers are put away, and a new weapon is drawn: words. What we see next is a war for the hearts and minds of the Roman people, and it's Brutus versus Antony. Brutus goes first, and his whole argument is based on logic and honor. He tries to frame the assassination not as a murder, but as a patriotic duty. His goal is to convince the crowd that killing Caesar was a totally rational, necessary act to save the Republic from a dictator. And this right here is a crucial point, especially for your exams: the huge contrast between their methods. Brutus speaks in prose. It's plain and rational, like a lecture. He's appealing to their minds, using logos. Antony, on the other hand, speaks in poetic verse, aiming straight for their hearts, using pathos. Brutus wants to be understood. Antony wants to be felt. Antony's approach is just brilliant. He can't directly attack the conspirators, he promised he wouldn't, so instead he uses verbal irony. He keeps calling them honorable men, over and over, until the phrase starts dripping with sarcasm and becomes the very opposite of a compliment. Think about this. Brutus gave just one abstract reason for the murder: ambition. Antony counters it with three powerful, concrete examples the crowd would remember. He basically asks them, was Caesar ambitious when he filled our treasury? Was he ambitious when he wept for the poor? Was he ambitious when he refused the crown 3 times? And then comes the masterstroke. It's pure political theater. Antony uses Caesar's bloody cloak as a stage prop, creating this horrible visual of the betrayal. He points out every single dagger hole, saving Brutus's for last, calling it the most unkindest cut of all, to hammer home that it was the ingratitude that really killed Caesar. So Antony's incredible speech does way more than just change a few minds. It unleashes absolute chaos. Now we get to see the direct and violent consequences of his powerful words. This brings us to a huge theme in Act 3, mob mentality. The Roman people are shown to be incredibly impressionable, just swaying from one emotional extreme to another based on whoever spoke to them last. They don't really have any firm beliefs of their own. And the change is shockingly fast. I mean, in just a matter of minutes, the crowd goes from wanting to make Brutus their new king to screaming for the blood of the conspirators. Antony's words literally turn them from regular citizens into an uncontrollable engine of destruction. And this horrifying scene with Cinna the poet, it just perfectly shows the mob's complete loss of reason. They corner this guy and kill him simply because he has the same name as a conspirator. When he protests saying he's not that guy, they yell, "Tear him for his bad verses." They're not looking for justice anymore. They're just driven by a blind, irrational rage that Antony set loose. Okay, let's distill all of this down into what really matters for your exams. These are the core concepts from Act 3 that you absolutely have to know inside and out. When you're writing your essays, you've got to be ready to discuss these big themes. You know, things like the power of persuasion, the difference between betrayal and loyalty, and of course, that huge idea of mob mentality versus individual reason. And understanding the character's fatal flaws is absolutely critical. Brutus is noble, but his idealism makes him naive and a poor judge of character, which is why he totally underestimates Antony. And Antony, he's shrewd, he's cunning, and he sees Brutus's weakness and exploits it perfectly to get his revenge.
Finally, you really want to commit these key quotes to memory. They're not just famous lines, they're like tiny arguments in themselves that perfectly summarize the key moments and motivations in this act. Trust me, using these as evidence will make your essays so much stronger.
So I'll leave you with this final question to think about. It's a great one for an essay, by the way. Who was the bigger danger to Rome? Was it the one ambitious man, Caesar? Or was it an entire city full of people who could be turned into a violent mob by one clever speech? That's one of the big questions the play leaves for you to decide.